PowerPoint number 2 for social influence, types of conformity. Now, just to remind you, what is conformity? We looked at that in the last PowerPoint. Conformity is when a person changes their outward behavior, their inward thoughts, opinions, attitudes, but it's down to the pressure they feel. Either this pressure is real or it's something they imagined, but they change their behavior to meet that of the majority of individuals. Now, a quick knowledge check. I want you to pause the video once all the questions have come up, piece of paper, write down the answers to the questions, and then we'll take a few moments to check afterwards. Remember, you'll need a different color pen as well, just like the classroom. First question is name the 2 explanations of conformity. And the second question, write as much as you can remember about each explanation. Remember to pause the video now. No cheating, pause it now. Right, I'm glad to see some of you did pause this little video. Now, let's do a bit knowledge check. Remember, let's get a different color pen. Let's go through the key elements of an explanation. We've got 2 explanations, normative social influence and informational social influence. So those are our 2 explanations. Remember, the explanations explain why a person is conforming. Don't get it mixed up with the types that we're going to be investigating now. So let's do a big check. We'll start with normative social influence. Key points, it's adhering to the norms of that social group. It's all about social acceptance. You have the desire to be liked. You want to be liked by your peers. And therefore, you're going to gain the social approval and therefore fit into that social grouping. It doesn't lead to the person changing their internal beliefs, thoughts, so they don't change privately what they believe or what they think about the situation or the group. They just change their outward behavior. Informational social influence, it's based on information. Remember, like I've said to you before, simplify the names. Informational social influence is all about the information. Normative social influence, it's about the norms. Let's get back to informational social influence. Informational social influence is based on the information. So it's the information that you receive, and either you are already in agreement because you agree with that information or you got, or you're getting informed by that majority thought processes. So they're giving you the information, you're going to think about it, and in turn you might change your opinions. And if you do, you're doing it because you need to be right. You have this longing or this want to be right. You want to do the right thing. So you're relying on the majority to give you this information because you see them as being the expert. And it's the expert that's going to give you access to this correct information. And this explanation, informational social influence, leads a person to changing both their public behavior, so what's seen on the outside, but also their private behavior, their internal behavior. It's going to change the way they think, their attitudes. So therefore, when you look at these 2 types of explanations, we can clearly see the difference in them. Now, remember, these are explanations. They explain why. They don't tell us which type or the level that they are conforming. So we're going to move on to the 3 different types of conformity. Now, these 3 different types of conformity are at different levels. We have one that is done at a very superficial level, then we have one on a medium level of conformity, and then one that is the highest level of conformity. So let's start with our first one, compliance. Now, a compliance is a person conforms publicly, but continuously privately to disagree. So they might go along with the group because they want to fit in. So I'm explaining why here. But they don't change the way they think. This is the shallowest form of conformity. We're just changing our outward behavior. We're just going along with the group. It is a very temporary change because it's only when we're with that group our behavior will change. When we're no longer with that group, our behavior is going to go back to perhaps meet the demands of the next social group that we're in. So it's the most superficial type of conformity. So it's the shallowest because it doesn't change the way we think or feel. So it's just changing our out, and it's very superficial. It's just seen on the surface. I'll give you an example. And we've all been in this situation. A person might laugh at a joke that others are laughing at while privately not finding it very funny. We've all done that. We've been in a group of friends and somebody tells a joke and you go, right, maybe not as false as that, but you laugh along, but in your head isn't to say, that's not even funny. You know, it's like those silly jokes that you get. How many elephants can you get in a mini? 2 in the front and 2 in the back. Why is that funny? But if you're in a group of friends and they all laugh, you will conform and laugh because you want to be liked. You want to be part of that group. Now, if we're looking to explain compliance, we would explain it through normative social influence. And this explanation suggests people conform because they seek social approval. We want to be liked, we want to fit in. So it's really important that we understand that compliance is the type of conformity, and we can explain it through normative social influence. Now, hopefully this little video will work. This footage comes from an American TV show that's still going now, but it started in the 1950s. It's called Candid Camera. We've done similar things on the British TV. Somebody goes in, they don't realize everybody around them is an actor, and they're put into a situation and it's looking to see how that person responds. In this case, it is people going into a lift. You're going to see 2 gentlemen, and everybody else that goes into the lift are actors. They go into the lift and they face the back of the lift. Now, we know normal behavior is that you go in and you usually turn around to face the door that you're going to leave. In this case, all the actors go in. They don't know they're actors, so it's a bit covert here. And let's see how the person responds. Right, let me just find, there it is. Right, you could see by just looking at the men's face, they're kind of saying, what's happening here? But because everybody else was doing it, they thought they'd better, you know, just fit in the norm. They're just fitting in. They're going to fit in to the norm of that group. Now, our second type of conformity is identification. Now, identification is, and I'll just read what I've wrote here. At times we conform to the behavior or opinion of a group because there is something about that group we value. So this is a moderate level of conformity. There's something that we value, we can associate ourselves with, we can identify ourselves. Remember, identification make it into a simpler word, identify. There's something that we can identify with that group, so we'll start to conform to what they stand for, what they represent. So here, we're changing our public behavior again, but we don't necessarily change privately what we agree with. So, for example, I've got a nice example here. You're visiting a friend in New York, you go to see the Red Sox play their baseball game, and at the start of the game, Americans are very patriotic. They stand up and the national anthem is sung. Everybody puts their hand on their chest. You stand up as well, and you put your hand on your chest as well. And you stay standing for the whole national anthem. Now, you probably wouldn't have done that in Britain, but because you identify with your friend and perhaps the group of friends he's with, because you value in something in them, their friendship, you will carry out that behavior. You don't necessarily agree with it or the idea that you should be forced to sing a national anthem, but because you value the friendship, you will conform. So here, identification is about something you value, and that will make you change your outward behavior. You don't necessarily agree with it, so therefore your internal, your private behavior, thought, attitudes will not change. And our final type of conformity is internalization. Now, again, internalization, internal. When we think internal, that means we're thinking about it. So this is here where a person changes both their public and their private. Because they've internalized it, that means they're thinking about the information that they're getting. They're taking times to internalize it. Look at all the facts that they're giving, all the opinions for the people in that group. And if they start to think to themselves, hold on, this doesn't start to make sense, I do believe in this, then they've changed both their public, so that means they will act differently within that situation, and they change their beliefs. So this is the deepest form of conformity, because it takes that process of taking time to understand and process the information that you've received. Unlike the other types of conformity, this is a permanent change. So when the group no longer exists, you will still have those beliefs. So it is a permanent change. When we look at identification and compliance, you only change your behavior when you're within that group. And when you're not in that group, your behavior will alter. Whereas internalization states that because we have processed this information, we've weighed up the pros and cons about the information that we've received. And if we then start to agree with it, it will change how we perhaps interpret the world around us, how we see the world around us, therefore making a permanent change to our behavior. An example might be a person who becomes a vegetarian. Off at university, you're living with a flatmate, 4 of your flatmates are vegetarians, and each of them explains to you why they're a vegetarian. You know, some might be because of the animals for health reasons. There could be lots of information, but they're all giving you a lot of information. You take that information, you process it, and then you may start to agree with the benefits of being a vegetarian. And therefore, you change your beliefs and your outward behavior because you stop eating meat and meat products. And therefore, you have now gone into the deepest form of conformity because you start to agree with it and become the vegetarian. If we were explaining this, we would explain it through informational social influence. So we're taking the explanation now to explain internalization, because you have the need to be right. You want to have the right information so that you carry out the right behavior, and therefore informational social influence can explain internalization. So there you have it. Those are our 3 types of conformity. Now, quick exam question. You know I love an exam question. Identify and explain differences between compliance and internalization. Okay, let's work together to understand the question. Let's hope my annotations work here. First time I'm doing it, so just give me a moment. I'm sure you can tell me where it is. Right. Oh, there we go. No, I don't want an arrow. Yeah, text. Oh, I want to draw. There we go. We have a thin line. And right. So let's look at our command words. We have got identify and we have explain. So those 2 are our command words. Identify, so you've got to state what it is, and then you've got to explain. But what do we need to explain? We're looking at the idea of differences. So remember, that is going to inform how you're going to answer the question, how you're going to write it up. Remember, whereas, compared to. Now, what's our topic area? Our topic area is compliance and oops, I lost my line there, and internalization. So we've got to show a difference, identify what the difference is, and explain the difference between compliance and internalization to get the 4 marks. So we have 4 marks. So what does that tell us? Let's go back to this word differences. It's plural. So that means 2. We need 2 differences. So what does that tell us? It tells us each difference is 2 marks. Well, it's hard writing with your finger. Not any different to, I'm just going to go 2 marks, not any different to my normal handwriting, I suppose. So we've understood the question. We've got to identify, so state the difference, then explain the difference. Remember to use words in the explains like whereas, compared to, however. Right, pause the video, give yourself a few minutes, get your piece of paper. When you've answered the question, unpause, not anything, unpause the video and compare answers. Okay, let's look at the answers. Oh dear, I forgot to take my annotations away. Let me just get rid of them. I did see an eraser, so quickly get rid of them. Should have did it earlier while you're answering the question. Right, you can just hear me waffling along. I'm sure you missed my wafflings. Yeah, I was good at those, wasn't I? Right, so let's close this again. So let's compare your answer. So we're looking for 2 differences. I'm going to read this through with you, and then you're going to compare it with your answers. One difference is the level of conformity. So that gives us 1 mark. Identify. Let's explain it. Compliance is superficial as people only change their outward behavior, whereas, remember, we've got to show the difference. Internalization is the deepest type of conformity. People change both internal and external behavior. So we've identified and we've explained the difference. So we've got 2 marks. Let's look at the second difference, because remember, it's asking for differences. Another difference is the length of time a person conforms. 1 mark. We've identified the difference. Now we've got to explain this difference. Compliance only lasts as long as the group lasts, so it's temporary. However, internalization is a permanent type of conformity, as the behavior lasts long after the group no longer exists. Again, we've used the words like however, whereas. So our 4 marks. Pause the video and let's do a little bit of marking. I do love another exam question. Now, before I talk about this exam question, the nice thing about the types of conformity, there is no evaluation for it. There is only evaluation AO3 for the explanations. So again, have a moment, read through the STEM, the question, go through it again so you fully understand it, and then pause. Answer the question, because when you unpause, you're going to be able to check your answer. So let me go through the answer and then you can do your checking. So Jan shows internalization. So we're clearly showing the type of conformity. So get straight to the point. She publicly and privately changed her attitude and now permanently only eats organic food. Nora is showing compliance. Okay, so we've made a point about Jan, identified the type, we've explained how it's impacted on her behavior, we've linked it to the STEM, now we've identified the type with Nora. She only conformed publicly to her friends' behavior, but had obviously not privately undergone attitude change to eating organic, as she reverted to eating non-organic in the holidays. So when she was no longer with them, she no longer ate organic. Nora probably conformed to gain group approval and membership, whereas Jan believed the other students to be right in their belief that organic food was good. So here we've identified each type, we've briefly explained it, and then we've gone on to further explain why they or how their behavior had changed, not why, how their behavior had changed. Good stuff. So that's us done the types of conformity. So work through it again, make your notes, use the textbook, right? And then complete all the other tasks.